We are going. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff Jones. I'm the Director of Education and Training for Blaze Sports America. It's my pleasure to on behalf of U.S. Paralympics and Blaze Sports America, to welcome you to today's webinar, Harvesting Your Marketing Genius, How to Message, Track, and Convert. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Our speaker is Stephen Stokes, who is the owner of Events, Inc., a Colorado-based event planning company. Stephen is also the Director of Event Management and Certification Program at Arapahoe Community College in Littleton, Colorado. Stephen has 15 years of event planning experience and has planned well over 300 events in 125 cities in 9 countries. His past work has included the Winter Paralympic Games in Salt Lake City. He is also a regular speaker at the U.S. Paralympic Amazing Leaders Conference. It is my pleasure on behalf of U.S. Paralympics and Blaze Sports America to welcome Stephen as our speaker today.
Thank you, Jeff, for getting us started. I'm excited to be here harvesting your marketing genius. It seems like I've taken on a big task with genius included in the title, but my intention is just to help you move along in your marketing, specifically in how to track messages, how to develop strong messages, and hopefully how to convert those to, in quotes, sales. And of course, sales can be adding new members, adding new athletes, increasing the number of people that come to your website, or whatever your intention is. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. During this morning's, or I guess for most of you this afternoon's presentation, where we'll be talking about developing powerful messages. We're going to learn how to track those, create an effective campaign, and then maximize the promotion that you're trying to do. I'm going to start today with a little bit of a fable. It's actually not a fable at all. It's a story of a guy that I worked with a few years back. He was a chiropractor. Call him Dr. Ted for the sake of this webinar, but that's not his real name. Things have been changed to protect the people that we don't know. He doesn't know I'm talking about him, of course. This picture is a guy who is changing out, I believe that they're crab pots. He's checking to see if his crab pots are full. And sometimes in marketing, we go a little quickly. So Dr. Ted, as I mentioned, he had a goal of increasing the number of patients in his chiropractic clinic from 400 patients to 600 patients in a month. He wanted to see an average of 600 patients, and he moved quickly. He had 5 tables, and he had a certain staff, and there was a whole system set up. He knew he could handle having that many people go through his program in a monthly period. He wanted an overall increase of 35%. And from a marketing standpoint, that is a challenge. And so he had gathered together a team of people, both people who worked on his staff. I worked with him for a bit, and he had other marketing people help him out. And he would tell his staff that he wanted to increase those numbers. This may be not too dissimilar from something you're doing. You're trying to raise, get an additional $20,000 in sponsorship dollars, or you're trying to find 10 new athletes, or you're trying to find 5 new coaches, or whatever it may be. So just think about your example. And he would tell his staff to market with flyers, and he'd want to go to events, and he had a certain number of brochures to use. He had classes every week, and he had a website that he wanted to, send people to. He had emails, and he had a whole bunch of emails that he sent out, several each week, and he had a social media site, and he's even expanded his social media site since I stopped working with him. And he had talks on a weekly basis. But similar to the guy checking the crab pots here, if he was walking down this line, checking each one, and he got to the end of the line, and then he moved back to the other end again, and then he moved back to the other end again, he just didn't give enough time for those marketing pieces to get going. On Monday, he'd say, I want you to add this additional flyer, and it's a Friday staff meeting. He'd say, we're only at 410 people this week. Are you kidding me? That's only 10 more. How are we going to get to 600 by the end of the month? And then he would start pulling the flyers off the shelf, literally, and throwing them in the trash can. That didn't work. Let me move on to the next thing. What can I change? How can I make it better? Why is this not working? The events I thought were going well. He was getting 40 guests at some of his classes. but he wanted to change it just a little bit too quickly. You know, marketing is a lot like this Fable. A lot of us take on something. We're looking out at the plan that we have in place, and we're saying, oh my gosh, I've had my social media page up for 2 months now. I can't believe it. I don't have the number of people on my Facebook fan page that I want. Or even as my business, when I started, we put up our website and we thought, oh, now the people are going to roll in. And 6 months later, we weren't even ranked in Google. We had no place in Google at all. So what is there to do? If you are like me, I was sitting there going, this guy is crazy. He makes me tired. You know, he pulls things off the thing so quickly that there's not enough time for things to cure. There's not time for us to get to where we want to go. Unfortunately, all too often we make things way too complicated. We choose too many ways to market our business or our programs, and we put too little focus on what exactly is producing the results we want. We want to focus our time and energy on exactly the thing that is making the difference in growing our business or our organization or our program, instead of just focusing on, let me try it out for a couple of weeks. Nope, that's not working. Let me try something else. So I don't know if you have a marketing piece in your bio, a flyer, a promotional brochure, postcard, newsletter, e-newsletter, something that you sent out in your organization over the last few weeks or few months. If you do have that in your bio, I encourage you to just pull it out now. I'm going to ask a few questions as we go through that might be helpful to you. If you just can take a look-see, you might have something nearby you that you could use. The question I have for you is, when you look at your piece, are you excited about it? Are you bored with it? Does it make you kind of inspired by the work that you're doing? Or does it light you up about your organization? Does it really get the message across that you are trying to say? Now, I only work with 20 to 30 nonprofits a year, and I wanted to check to see, is my theory correct? Is what I'm seeing amongst these few nonprofits the same as what's happening to the larger population? So I went out to look for a survey that might match and just give me a little more insight before sharing with you today. And I found that this survey has been done over the last few years, and this is the 2010 version of the information I'm going to share with you now. It's a Getting Attention Nonprofit Marketing Survey done by an organization called Getting Attention, and the owner of that company is Nancy Schwartz. You can go to their website and learn more, and she actually has a lot of great articles and blogs and things for nonprofits. I'd certainly encourage you to check that out. Anyway, she conducted a survey with 915 nonprofits, asking them about their marketing. 55% of those nonprofits were frustrated by the lack of resources or the lack of leadership support for marketing. But only 37% of those same nonprofits that were interested in that, all right, let's see, support for marketing, only 37% do the tracking that generates increased budget and confidence. Basically what the survey is saying is, while a lot of nonprofits are frustrated by the lack of resources they have available for marketing, at the same time, only 37% check to see if their marketing is effective. And so that's part of what this webinar is about today, is to look and say, first, how do you build a message? And then second, how do you look to see if your message is being effective? So basically from the survey, 63% of nonprofits are sending out marketing messages, but they're not tracking their effectiveness. It's effectively like sending something out. You know, I know that most of us, probably all of you, send out an email message every day. And then maybe you were sending out an email message to say, I'm going to come over and hang out with you on Friday for that party, an RSVP or something. And then showing up on Friday and the participant going, well, I didn't get your message, we don't have a space for you. Marketing is like that. If you send it out and you have no idea how many people are receiving it, or even if they're looking at it, it really limits your ability to track and know whether it's effective, whether it has interest to your specific community, and whether your members are reading it. I know I receive a number of things each month through my mail, either through my snail mail slot, or I probably get 100 emails a day, some that include material that I could read that might produce a sale. And of those 100 things, I probably only look at 5 things a day, maybe less. So we want to look and say, how can we increase the readership of the marketing that you're sending out? So the survey went on to say nonprofit messages, so these were the survey respondents from the nonprofit organizations. They were saying nonprofit messages don't connect strongly with key audiences. 86% of nonprofits characterize their messages difficult to remember, and inconsistent messages leave confusion and annoyance to their stakeholders. So my question to you is, are you sending out your message for more donors, more athletes, more supporters, but how much of what you're saying is getting across to the end user, and how might you track that to know whether you're being effective? And if you send out a marketing piece and you get the number of registrants you need and you're sold out, then that's a great way to track. But you may be able to look at additional resources in the tracking of your marketing to know how many people are even reading it in the first place. Because sometimes somebody will say, oh, my program is priced too high, or, oh, they don't really care about my program at all. And instead it's, wow, they never even read my message. They have no idea what it is that I'm saying. The survey also said, and these are quotes from the survey, that our messages need to be more succinct to communicate how effective we really are. So a lot of nonprofits, maybe their messages are too confusing for the end user. We don't move our base to action. If you look back at that marketing piece that you pulled out from your desk or your area, does it move your base to action? Does it get them to move to make some sort of action in today? Our messages aren't hard-hitting or target enough. And you can see the other pieces on there. I read a marketing piece. I used to work for a production company, and we had so much jargon inside of our organization. There was actually a syllabus of all jargon related to the organization, almost 10 pages of jargon. And if you look at your marketing pieces, are there anything that if you had not already been involved in disabled sports that you wouldn't know about already? The marketing pieces that you're sending out, generally speaking, if it's for a general population, should be reading level of a 5th grade level. Are there times when you're using jargon that people don't understand what you're saying or what you're asking for? So in the survey, the nonprofits, 78%, saw these characteristics as crucial for messaging that would connect to their audience. They were hoping that the messaging, they're saying what's most important, that the message is clear, it's focused, concise, engaging, unique, and memorable. I remember looking at a postcard I was at the Paralympic conference, the Amazing Leaders Conference. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago. And somebody brought up their postcard after a marketing session that I taught there. And they said, is this a good postcard? And I mean, of course, first looking at it, it was vibrant. It had pretty pictures, had 3 images of adaptive equipment. But I had to ask them, who is your target market? Who do you plan to send this to? What action do you hope that they'll take by reading this postcard? If the action that you want them to take is knowing that your organization is out there, I think it's a great postcard. But if your action you want them to take is to sign on and become a new athlete, it's not very clear. If instead you wanted to have somebody learn more about your sponsorship opportunities, that wouldn't have been clear in that postcard either. So it's looking to say, why are you creating the piece? Is the goal, and this is true with each individual marketing piece you're putting out there. Whether it's a press release you're sending out, whether it's information on your website, whether it's a brochure or a flyer, your goal is to, of course, increase, or it could be, to increase awareness. Perhaps in one case you're looking for more athletes. You're just creating or making a name for yourself inside of your organization. You're looking for more funding or better funding, volunteer growth. So it's first to say, what do I want to create? What is my end goal in creating this piece? In the events that we plan, we oftentimes have organizations we work with say, well, why don't you just write a press release and send it out. I know you could get in the newspaper. But just sending something out without having an end goal in mind, if it's just about awareness, you might get something in the paper. But if it's about growing the number of athletes at your event, that press release is going to need to look a little different. You need to request that they follow up with that specific piece. So you want to ensure that your organization's strategies and goals are crystal clear. And it could be that your overall organization is, but that you want to be looking at, you want to be looking at your tagline. Does your tagline match your organization? I know the third thing says start with your tagline, less is more. In my event planning class at the college, I asked people to do a marketing communications kind of test. And what I said is, okay, I'm going to tell you about this event, and if you could write a press release for this particular event. And I would encourage you all to try this particular exercise. It's valuable. So I'm going to have you write that, and I'm going to give you 30 minutes to write that piece. Now, obviously, we don't have time on this webinar for that, but sit down and write that piece. And then at the end of the 30-minute time, then count up the number of words that you have. Say you devised or created 800 words for that particular marketing message, and then say, okay, I'm going to cut that in half. I'm going to try to say the same thing that I just said in 800 words in 400 words instead. And so you rewrite that thing from 800 words to 400 words. And then you do it again to 200 words. And then you do it again to 100 words. Most people can only stand the exercise to 3 levels because after that they're annoyed with the process. But oftentimes in our day-to-day communications, we're much more wordy. Even in the way that I'm explaining it, I could explain this process in a lot less words. But if you do that process, you're going to start to whittle down and really create these powerful messages that you want. And then if you have your tagline, one suggestion is you could instead start with your tagline first and say, if I can define what I specifically want in 6 words or 4 words, then I can certainly do it over the course of a 600-word press release. It's sometimes harder to write something shorter than longer, and your tagline is basically as short as it gets. It's the absolute essence of your specific messaging. So anyway, so there's that. I wanted to just talk about the steps for developing a marketing message. If you haven't had a chance to create or design a marketing message, I'm sure all of you have done this at least once or twice in developing some sort of a marketing message for your organization. But here are 6 steps, and I'm going to show you 2 examples at the end. So the first is, obviously with a headline, capture the attention that's going to clearly define exactly who you're talking to. Imagine looking at a newspaper and the headline is that basic, if I only read the headline, I'd know whether I want to read the article or not. If you're selling something to retirees, perhaps your headline is something like, if you are 65 or older. Headlines are for grabbing attention. They're about filtering the audience down, generating curiosity. So if you're sending out your marketing piece, I'm going to talk about one just a little bit later that I met, somebody I met at the Amazing Leaders Conference again a couple of years ago, and they had a marketing piece, and they said, people aren't reading my piece. And I said, well, maybe you're just not having it in front of the right audience, but by changing your headline, you could get that sorted out more quickly. The second step is identifying the specific problem, symptom, issue, or need of your target market. You want to start from there and then move them to the action you want them to take. So if you were looking, again, for retired people, you might say from here something like a subheadline that reads, and looking, if you're 65 or older as your headline, and you're looking for a way to make a difference in the lives of others, would be the second step. The third step is providing a brief description of the specific service that you're offering. Perhaps you have an event coming up soon and you're in need of additional drivers, and you can use retired folks who are interested in making a difference in the lives of others to drive transportation to and from the guest hotel out to your specific venue. Be sure you describe features that matter to the target market you're communicating to, and describe them from the target market's perspective. So in the perspective of the 65-year-old who's, or maybe the 75 or the 80-year-old who's coming and volunteering during your event, what's going to make it most appealing to them? Of course, your interest is in getting more volunteers for your event. But honestly, the reader is not that interested in what your need is. They're more interested in what their need is. My interest is in having a place to volunteer. I want a place that's safe. I want a place that's comfortable. I want a place where people have fun. I want a place where people can make a difference. And so in that developing of the message, you're telling them what they could have if they came on site to your event. The fourth is describing the benefit and the value that the customer will derive by being involved. Again, these benefits must be pertinent to the customer group you're selling to or the person you're talking to. So again, if you're going back to those seniors, you might say the benefit that you would get from being here is feeling good. You want to give your message credibility. You know, how has a past person who's been a volunteer at your organization done at the event? So say there's a past senior who's come out to every event that you've had, and you get a quote and you include that quote in there. Or perhaps you have a case study that you could share, some story about a way a senior connected to an athlete on site at your event and had a really great experience. And then most important, and most often forgot about in marketing messages, is stating the specific action you want the recipient of your message to take. So the specific action. It's more important. Sometimes you'll see on flyers or promotional materials, things like that, a phone number or an email address or even a website. And a lot of times there'll be all three. But what action do you want them to take? Do you want them to call someone? Do you want them to send an email? Do you want them to go to a website? And the more specific you can be, the better off you are. Call this phone number and then fill out this survey, and then we'll call you back within 24 hours. Something so that you're having people take a specific action. You want to, if you get someone excited about coming out and being on site at your event, you want to follow up with what action you specifically want them to take in order to have that happen. So I have an example here. Click on the right part. There you go. So this was talking about getting debt-free. So I took it out of the realm of disabled sports. But going back to the 6 steps I mentioned, strong headline, get debt-free today. If you have a lot of debt, getting debt-free today sounds really good. What's the problem or need of your target market? Too many Americans are in debt, paying too much for credit card fees. And of course, you could go on, but I was trying to make it fit on this slide. Brief description of program. Our program is like magic. It's just 7 quick steps. Our program participants are debt-free and have good credit. I'd like to see a program that actually can do this, by the way. The benefits or value of the program. This program is easy for you as a consumer. If anybody's been in debt before, they know that working with credit card companies isn't super easy. So if I was able to find a program that was super easy, that would be swell. Credibility. We've done this process with over 10,000 people this year alone. So you're giving credibility to the organization as a whole. And then the specific action steps that they should follow. Call today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Call today, and here's that specific phone number. So you can look to your same organization and say, I'm going to start with those same marketing messages. Strong headline, adaptive sports rock. And then problem. Do you have a disability? Are you sit at home wishing you could exercise like you used to? X, Y, Z. You might include here a little bit more about the way that they might feel being at home, or the way that they, or you could even be appealing to, say you were appealing to a sponsor, somebody who might be giving you money who's not a person with a disability. It could be, imagine yourself with a disability. How would you do the things that you know to do? X, Y, Z. Okay. A brief description of the program. Our program brings skiers with a disability to the mountain for skiing, snowboarding, and lessons. The ROI, they get so much more than just a great skiing experience. They'll get to have fun. They get to be in an environment of care. They get X, Y, and Z. And credibility. We've been around since 1987 and have done this type of work with hundreds of skiers. You're making people feel good. So it seems so simple, and I'm sorry, I forgot even that specific action step. I put the same one, call today to this phone number. But you could say, fill out this survey online, or email this person, or whatever. But you want to say, email today, or you want to say, take this action by now. We have a new program starting November 1st. So if you just took, if nothing else from this presentation, and you just took that which is on the left-hand side of the slide, and each time you're writing your message using a strong headline, creating a problem, writing the description, ROI, credibility, you'll be well on your way to having nice marketing pieces. But if you're developing your marketing piece, you want to be looking to say, who is the intended audience of this piece? I mentioned that before. What action do you hope they will take? If they're giving money to your organization, how are you addressing that inside of the marketing piece? And then how will you know when that success has happened? We're moving more into the tracking piece now. So at the Amazing Leaders Conference a few years ago, I had a few people come up after I mentioned a gentleman with a postcard, and there was a gal who had a brochure. And she said, you know what, I have this brochure. Can you just take a look at it? I don't know if it's producing the kind of result I want. So I looked at it, and the front page, it was two 11 by 17 pages folded in half. They were mailing out 1,000 of these buggers, which was not a cheap endeavor for them. Definitely had color on it, so that was hard to do, and had folded. It was stapled. So they were spending the money, and they wanted to get this result. So the front page had an image on it. The inside left message was a message from the executive director. It was a lot of typing and not a lot of pictures. The inside right, had the rules for the sports package, and then the back was a mailing panel so that they could mail the thing out. And then the inside page was an 11 by 17 folded in half, and the entire thing was an application and then 2 pages of rules. So I looked at the thing and I said, you know, there's nothing actually wrong per se from a aesthetic standpoint. It's pretty. But what goal do you have? Where is this piece going? What's the purpose of this specific piece? And how is it going to match or meet your target market that you're trying to get? And the woman stated that it was for a doctor's office, and they were looking for more athletes. It was at a rehabilitation clinic, I believe. They were looking for more athletes, and they were sharing in the piece about their organization. So what I suggested to her is you're wanting to look for what ways they're going to connect to an audience in the way that's going to make the most sense. So could you include more pictures? You know, a picture speaks 1,000 words is not inaccurate. You have a series of pictures of an event. Maybe you have a testimonial from whether it be a volunteer or an athlete. Perhaps you have a staff person telling a story of a participant. Maybe you have a participant sharing a specific story. Not on a printed piece, you're not going to have video, but video makes a huge impact if that's available. So she went back and she reworked it, and we talked on the phone a couple of times. This is not the piece. I took this off of something else. But she included more pictures. She included more program information. Reluctantly, she removed the center page, which had been the application, and instead she included a website for the application. She had stories of success and the testimonial from her coach. So making the overall piece, in quotes, more towards the specific audience that she was trying to reach. Now, if I was doing the piece again, I might suggest that she say, you know, have a big picture on the front with big text that says, are you looking for, you know, are you interested in sports? And then having 1 or 2 vibrant pictures on the inside to share. But basically, she took the same piece that she had before, but by taking out that center 11 by 17 and adding in a link for a website, she opened up the document to have a whole bunch more space, 100% more space to actually market the program. She was concerned that people wouldn't have access to a URL, to a website to go to get the application. So we added a specific area on there that just had a phone number. If you don't have a computer available to your service, you can call this number and we'd be happy to mail you or fax you or send you an application in that way. So you might say to yourself, oh, that's much better, right? Steven's a professional. He's been doing 300 events. Changing those elements should have made a huge difference, right? Well, not necessarily. Marketing works in mysterious ways. And while I have a lot of experience, I'm not saying that everything that I say is 100% perfect. There's certainly times where I learn and make just try things out. And in our own business, we track and look at how can we make this marketing effort bigger or better. By tracking, it's just crucial to a marketing campaign. If you're not tracking, you're really not marketing. I don't know. There's, you might say, well, I am marketing because I'm sending something out. If you're sending something out and nobody reads it, then that's certainly a waste of money and a waste of time. Marketing tracking will show you which marketing vehicles are working and which marketing vehicles are not working. By tracking both your online and your offline efforts, you can create a more cost-effective campaign overall. So in the case of the old versus the new, she had, the gal that was doing this, she did have the document in a doctor's office, but in addition, perhaps she had a database of 1,000 people. So she could have created the next quarterly one. Now, is it going to be more work in that one quarter to try out 2 different brochures? Yes, it is. But if you can increase your effectiveness by 50% or 60%, increase your readership, increase the number of people who are interested in your organization, perhaps it's worth that additional work that one quarter. So you would send out to your database 500 of option A, the newsletter that you've used in the past, and send 500 option B, the image that's on the bottom left-hand corner of option B. And then in that particular report, or in that particular marketing piece, you create action opportunities to find out if people are reading more one piece over the other piece. You would want to put the same kind of action opportunity in both pieces so you get an idea. So perhaps you have a drawing for free lessons, or you have a particular time, maybe you have passes to a ski hill, and you put them in both passes, the first 5 to call with first 5 people to call on this particular drawing get free lessons. Or perhaps you have them join your mailing list, and whether you're pretty much any of the constant contact or vertical response or AWeb or any of the marketing pieces will let you do split testing, so you would be able to set up one mailing list for the first brochure and one mailing list for the second brochure and see how many people come into the first versus how many come into the second. You could potentially put something online so people connect to an online location. That part of the story is written in the article, in the printed newsletter, and part is written online. You could have them fill out some sort of a survey. Go to the website, fill out the survey. Basically, you're looking for ways to get people in action through your marketing piece, but in turn, you're looking to say how many people are coming from the old model of the newsletter versus how many people are coming from the new model of the newsletter. Tiny URL I'll talk about a little bit later, so you could also use that in this case. So the easiest by far, and in the next few slides, I think the next 3 or 4 slides, we said, what's a simple way that you can make this happen, or what's a more complex way that you can make it happen, depending on your budget and the size of your organization. So word-of-mouth tracking is great. Use call tracking to determine the rate of return. Every time somebody new calls me, I ask, where did you hear about us? So that's a really easy way to ask and find out how your marketing pieces are making an impact. If everybody who calls says, I found you on Google, or I found you in this particular marketing piece, it's a decent way to do it. Another way to do it is create 2 different ads using 2 different styles, similar to the slide from before, where you have 1 or 2 different newsletters, and then you put different phone numbers on each of the ads. So you can either create a simple phone number, maybe at your place of business, you have multiple extensions. So everybody who calls from ad A is extension 1, ad B is extension 2. Excuse me, every time I do these calls, I need water. I apologize. You could also put different phone numbers on each of the ads. There's a company called eVoice, evoice.com, where you can sign up and get a phone number for a less expensive amount. It's a monthly fee. You can do a 1-800 number in the same way for not very much money. And also Google Voice will allow you to use a Google phone number. And I think that you can also do some split testing with the Google Voice. But basically, you have someone call in from a certain number and track that call. Now, for my size organization, we only get maybe 5 to 10 sales calls a month. We want to have more, but right now that's where we are. So it's really easy to say, hey, where did you hear about us? But if you're having 100 calls a month or 300 calls a month, using something more complex with 2 different numbers is really effective. So I mentioned before about Butterl, that comes up here on this slide, that you could send out in a print piece or direct mail marketing piece where you're going to send them to a specific website. And luckily with social media and with websites and whatnot, things, the way to track and split testing and tracking works a lot different. In fact, if your organization does not have a website already, there's a new website company called Mashable. It's mashable.com. And basically, it allows you to create 2 different landing pages, which I'll talk about here in the complex setup. 2 different landing pages where people could, every time that they come to your website, they land on one page or the second page. So basically, in a website setup, every time any user comes, the first person comes to page A, second user comes to page B, the next user comes to page A, and then they track to see how long did the user stay online, how likely was it that they clicked through to donation, what setup is it. It's a template kind of website, so it's not that much, $39 or $59 a month, something like that. And you can split test all day long to see what's going to connect and make people more excited about being involved in your organization. So again, with the print, going back to the print campaign, I kind of got on the tangent there with Mashable. But print and direct mail marketing, you're sending out a marketing piece and then you want to send them back to a website so you can track when the visitor comes to your website. So the simplest way to do that, I know, is to create a tiny URL. I use a company called budurl.com, and they have a free service if you just do it a few times a year. But they're also tinyURL, and there are other companies that do the same thing. And basically, you're able to set up a small URL that you can tag onto some marketing piece. So you can see Ducky 2 and Ducky Derby is relationship to a Rotary campaign that we were doing. I'm a member of a Rotary club, and we're having a Duck Derby race, so we just had it back in September. And we were looking to say which is going to be more effective. So we put out a whole bunch of signs. One of our members is a sign company, and on all of the signs, it had the URL budurl.com/Ducky Derby. And 180 people clicked through. So I was able to see by going to the website how many people clicked through, and you can actually go one step further to see how many people clicked through on each day of the campaign. And then we paid for an ad called Ducky 2. And so I had a separate ad. We paid for that. It was a small amount of money. So you can see 0 people click through from the ad. So the signs in this case were a much more effective approach. We were doing a similar what C360 is. It was an older style one. I was doing a promotion in an online newsletter, and they said, if you do this online newsletter, we promise we're going to give you traffic. It's only $99 a month. We'll give you one free. I'm real leery in my business, so I'm going to get a lot of click-throughs. So I created a bud URL to see how many people would click through to C360 in order to get to my website. And 11 people clicked through. So 11 people was a decent number, but it produced 0 sales. So in terms of me marketing my business through that email campaign or through that website campaign, I decided it wasn't a good use of $99 a month. So it gives you a lot more clarity than just saying, I'm just going to send it out. And in the case of the C360, we masked in the case of the Duck Derby signs, Butterold/Ducky Derby, we didn't mask it, so that was just what was on every sign because it was a printed piece. But on a website piece, you can say click through to this button, and the link is hidden, so nobody knew that they were clicking through the Bud URL because it auto-forwarded them to my website. So I was able to look and see, was that a good use or was that not a good use? So it's a really easy way to do it, and with the free version of Bud URL, again, it's a free service, a really nice way to track and really just to check to see are things being effective. You could create, from a more complex standpoint, if it's easy for you to get other URLs for your organization, URLs don't cost that much, you can create 2 different landing pages that connect to your main website and then use, in all of your printed pieces, you go back to that printed newsletter, you send 500 out with yourcompany.org, and you send out 500 with yourcompanyonline.org, and you see how many people click through to come to your website through those 2 ways. So it really just depends. Again, I'm tracking for my Rotary Club, 180, 200 visitors, really wasn't worth creating and buying and having a separate URL, but in the other case, it definitely was. So creating and checking those things out makes things real easy. As I'm thinking about this, I thought about if you do not have a website for your organization right now, we've just started in our business using a company called Weebly, Weebly.com, Weebly.com, and Weebly allows you first to set up a free website, and then if you want, you can set up to 10 websites for, I think it's $99 a year. I was paying $29 a month for my old website, so $99 a year for 10 websites sounds like a great thing. So in that way, now I'm creating more specific marketing campaigns than I was in the past. In the past, everything was just events, etc. Now I've got, and you'll see it at the end when I invite you if you want to come over to eventplanningtraining.com, that's a website I made on Weebly. So instead of having just my business website with a page about speaking, I now have a website just specifically for my speaking. And I have another website that'll be eventually, we have our wedding is, my fiance and my wedding is coming up next spring, so I have a wedding website on there as well. I know you all wanted to know that. Okay, good. So anyway, let me get myself back on track again. But Weebly.com is a wonderful resource and a less expensive option. So social media. How would I track social media to see is it going to return, create a return on my investment? Well, basically you can create specific interactions with your participants on social media. I've seen, we have a Facebook fan page. You're welcome to add on to that. And we put out, sometimes it's specials, sometimes it's fun websites. The website I just added this morning is a website called Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. And you go to Fiverr.com, and for $5 you can buy a whole bunch of different things. Somebody will call up somebody on their birthday as an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonator. So anyways, I don't know why I was sharing that. Oh, because of the Facebook.com/events, etc. You can get that on there. So anyways, you want to create your interaction with your participants. That's where I was going. So you have open-ended questions. You might be able to share a link. So the thing like Fiverr, I was able to share a link with my participants under events, etc. today. You could ask an open-ended question. How many people have tried the new, I get one of the magazines that includes different adaptive equipment. You could say, how many people have tried the new, I'm making it up, the Reflex 5000 ankle, blah, 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 whatever. And then have people respond back. Have they had a good experience? Have they had a bad experience? How many people have tried the new sit ski? How many new people have tried this? How many people know of a great place to find a rehab specialist or a massage therapist in my community? Something like that. It's trying to engage. Social media is all about engaging people. So you might be able to share a video with a comment. You might be able to promote your event on there. You might be able to ask for a donation. You could ask for volunteers or share an announcement. Because every time, of course, when you're promoting, then it's going up on other people's lines. But it's, again, important, as I mentioned in the other pieces, it's important to track those sites. So this is an Excel spreadsheet from a tracking that a friend of ours does on hers. It's a year old, but it still applies. Basically, she has both a Facebook fan page and she has a Twitter page. And she writes down every day. She makes a comment on her Facebook page. Well, actually, it looks like there are a few days that she doesn't. But the column on the left just shows all the specific dates, and then it shows what kind of thing that she did on the specific days. So on it looks like August 1st of last year, she had a fan post. She tweeted that link on her thing, and that resulted in a higher number of fans. It looks like her threshold is 20 or 30. If she gets 20 or more, she highlights it. How many page views did that produce to her website? 167 page views. How many views of photos to look through photos on her site? 7. And so she went back to look. Now, if you do that over time, and even if I look just at this one page of hers, every time she tweets something, it increases the number. So what does that say? It says maybe if you have a tweet account, or Twitter account, excuse me, that you should be tweeting on a regular basis. But she's found that she doesn't want to tweet every time. She just has a certain kind of thing that she's going to tweet and share. So if you're asking an open-ended question, typically that produces a higher rate of return than a fan posting. So by using this, and you can start to look and say, what's going to be the most effective? In the case of our Facebook fan page, we know we're going to have the most effective results if we put something really bizarre, weird, or strange on it, or if we ask an open-ended question, or if we have some sort of a contest. We had a request for people to name our newsletter, and 10 or 12 people came back on and had names for our internet newsletter, which we've yet to send. But when we do send it out, we'll use her name on it, and we sent her a Starbucks gift card as a thank you. And by putting that little incentive on there, we got a few more people, and we were actually looking for a name. We couldn't figure something out, and so we found something that worked really well. We're also looking for a new URL for our website. We put that on there, and we got no responses at all. So sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. It really just depends on how you engage the customer. But by tracking the interaction, you can start to look and say, how am I going to need that to ramp up or get more people onto my website? You can look and say, if I have a really good day on Facebook, if I post 2 other things the next 2 days, am I going to get the same kind of response? That might help you to know when you build your next campaign how often you should send the messages out. Is it necessary to send them out every day, or could I just send out 3 a week or 5 a week? What's going to produce the best result? So the goal is to best determine what is getting you the result. So the goal is to look back between the 2 newsletters, not to just take Stephen's word for it, but to create 2 different newsletters, send both newsletters out, split test between the people on your list. If it's a big enough sample, you're going to get a decent return back, and you might then be able to decipher over time. Unfortunately, this is not a quick process. You can't, and I've even had people start a social media site and say, like Dr. Tad at the beginning, oh my gosh, I'm looking in my crab pot, and it's empty. Darn it. Next crab pot, oh, it's empty. But if he'd waited for the appropriate period of time, the 48 hours or 72 hours that it takes to fill the crab pot and come back, that would have been a better fit. It's the same way in your marketing. Why did one piece engage your customer and another did not? What kind of promotion or advertising brought them to your website and which didn't? From your website, what had them register into a program? What had them make a donation on your site? And where did they see the message? Perhaps, and in the case of the duck derby that I mentioned with my Rotary Club, we knew both that we weren't going to advertise in a particular location anymore, but we spent a lot of time sending out press releases. We spent a lot of time talking to the local radio station. We spent a lot of time creating some specific kinds of communications for other Rotary clubs in the area. And by tracking with a bud URL, we found out none of that stuff worked. So really the best was the on-site interaction we sold tickets at a grocery store, and our other best on-site was with these big signs. So next year, we're going to do the event again. We can not do all that stuff that didn't work. We can instead do the stuff that really did work and do it better, do it more, get more signs out there, and spend our money, time, and energy on the things that are actually working. So in your organization, you really want to repeat the processes that are working the best, and you want to discontinue programs or marketing pieces that are no longer working. It may be, and I suggest to some organizations that sending out a press release is really not worth your time. If you don't have a good connection with media, if we're going to get it out there, you might over time at some point, maybe you have somebody who can really do it, but by really looking, by really tracking to see how things are coming in, you have a much better idea on how things are going to convert. The high conversion depends on several factors, though. It's the interest level of the visitor, it's the attractiveness of the offer, is it created pretty or is it not, and it's the ease of the process. Is it really easy to buy tickets? Is it really easy to register your child for a new sport program? When you can test, you can make things easier. You can test one approach and see if it works. You can test another approach. Is it better to say the soft approach and talk about all the fluffy stuff about sports? That is really good. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel better. Or is it better to go with a competitive approach? They'll win medals. They'll race against each other. Whatever. I don't know. Which will bring more people to your program? It doesn't. It depends on how things are converting, and it's not that. The interesting part and why marketing kind of takes a little bit while, why the genius in you will boil over time, is because you can't just put out, unfortunately, one marketing message to, say, the high schools in your area looking for athletes and use that same exact message if you were looking for senior volunteers. You're going to have a different message for each. So again, go back to that slide with the 6 quick steps. Develop your marketing message for the specific target market, send it out, and then test it using a URL or using a specific website or something like that. You know, and I apologize for the blurriness of this graphic, but basically you know, in this example it said 10,000 total visitors to the site. So you have a number of visitors to your website, number of the visitors to your, let's do it to your website. And you have the total number of visitors. You're going to have a certain number that are going to visit one page. You're going to have a certain number that are going to sign up for something. You're going to have a certain number that are interested in purchasing or being involved in a program. And by the end, 300 visitors complete some specific goal that you have in mind. So by tracking and converting and looking, you get a better sense of how things are going to drill down over time. Each time you do a new campaign, you're going to have a better idea of how many people, so that at the end, you don't have to worry about, am I going to get the amount of money that I need for the sponsorship? You know, if you go out and approach 100 people, that 50 are going to be interested, and that 25 are going to have a meeting with you, and 12 are going to, give you a certain amount of money, and 3 are going to give you the amount of money you need. So I know I'm at the end of my time, and normally I would say, thank you for coming. This is the end of the webinar. I know we have some time for questions, that sort of thing, but really this is the beginning. If you begin testing your programs by looking at and tracking where things are coming in, the advantage is you're going to spend less time on things that don't work and more time growing the things that do work. So this, for me, for you, is more the beginning than it is the end. I did want to mention just quickly, you're welcome to go to eventplannertraining.com, and that basically has a few other webinars if you're interested. And I also encourage, certainly give me a call if you have questions. My personal Facebook webpage is .com/eventguy, and our business is .com/events, etc. I'd love to hear questions you have or that sort of thing. I know that there's also assistance both with Jeff at Blaze Sports and with Susan at U.S. Paralympics. But with that, I believe there's a little time here left for questions. So if you have any questions, now would be the time.
Well, thank you, Stephen. Yes, now is the time to type in your questions. We do have one in the hopper. So, folks, while you're listening, you have a chance to put in yours. So, Stephen, the one that we have right now is we had limited staff, limited time, and very limited resources. which would you concentrate on, print or electronic marketing?
Electronic marketing. Now, if you only have a certain amount of time or staff in this, well, I say that and then I say, for me, I would say electronic marketing because I have an easy facility with the computer. I have a sense of understanding of how social media works. And for my specific target market, social media is the way to go. If your target market is, say, 70-year-olds who don't have a computer, then I would stick with print. But if you're looking at young people, young families, that sort of thing, you're looking to acquire more athletes, social media just gives a lot more interaction with the customer, and it gives a lot more, and it's a lot easier to change, and honestly the cost is a lot less. Unless you get print paid for by somebody else, setting up and developing a website is going to be a lot less expensive than one printed quarterly newsletter.
Okay. We have one more coming in here. It says, have you had experience with joint marketing with for-profit businesses?
I have. If you could, is there more of a question? Basically, yes, I have. And I've done it in a number of different ways to market with a for-profit business. I've done it as, say, an advertisement, say the local, I worked with an organization once and they had a specific amount of ad space that they were buying on a weekly basis in a local newspaper, and they split their advertisement for us for a period of time, and they put half their advertisement was for a car organization. It was, I can't want to remember what kind of dealership it was, but basically they split their advertisement. Half of it was for the car, and then half of it was for my organization to share about our events. We used it as a marketing thing with through a sponsorship as part of the sponsorship trade marketing value that we were able to receive. So I've done it that way before. I have done Pepsi. If your community is a Pepsi community or Coke is a Coke community, they'll oftentimes print banners for free or reduced cost. Our Pepsi plant here, as long as they can put the Pepsi logo on it, they'll print a sign for pretty much anything, usually like the 3-by-5 foot banners, and they'll do that for free. So I've done things like that before. I've worked with organizations, sometimes in the area of sponsorship, to share marketing in that way. I've had businesses give me advertisements for free. So was there another follow-up question to that, Jeff?
No, not at this point, but I think that's you hit the head on that one. So we do have another one here. How much time each day do you have to monitor our Facebook page to make sure posts are appropriate, etc.?
The way that we have our Facebook fan page set up, and you can change this in your administrator settings, is that we only allow our posts. When we originally started, we had a number of people that wanted to promote their events on our Facebook fan page, and we didn't specifically want that to happen. We wanted to be promoting outward in that way versus having people post. So we changed that administrative setting, and inside of that, then all that's on there is our original post, and then somebody can respond to my post. And I look at that. I'd probably hop on Facebook sometimes twice a day. If I'm trying to avoid work, maybe 3 times. But usually just once or twice a day for 5 minutes. But by changing that administrative setting, that was a big piece, because we didn't want it to become a big a place where people are going to promote every program in Denver. That wasn't our goal. And by changing that administrative setting, then somebody can pop on there, and it's not that much to manage.
Okay. Another one is there such a thing as over-tracking when talking directly with your target audience? In my organization, we send several messages to recruit or inform about different programs we offer. Is it good preferred method? Is there a good or preferred method to track many messages at one time without bogging down the recipient, in your opinion?
There are a lot of opinions out there about how many messages you should send out to your end user. By looking to see if people, say you're sending it out using like a constant contact or something like that, and you look and you say you send out 3 messages in 1 week, and you notice that you have 10% of your list or 5% of your list or 1% of your list drop off, then you have to ask yourself, and as an organization, am I okay with losing those people? Normally, I would say if you're losing a small percentage, it's natural. Some people get on your list and they don't want to read your list anymore. I used to never opt out a list, but now I'm on so many, I really do. If I'm not reading the message, I opt out. So it's probably a little bit up to you. Because I like internet marketing, I get there are several internet marketers actually that send me as many as 8 to 10 messages every single day. That's too much. Those people, even though I know they're going to send me good content, I have a separate email address set up for them because I want their stuff, but I only want to read it every once in a while. So what I would say is if you set up your campaign, if you set up, say you have an event coming up in 6 weeks, and you're looking for more volunteers and you're also looking for more participants, and it's on the same marketing list, that you look to say, I'm going to send out 3 to 6 messages between now and that particular event, and then look to space them out in a way so that it's not coming so often. And then just check to see how many people are dropping off. We had one client that we worked with, and she was unwilling to send an email more than once a month, but the result of that was she didn't get the registrations for her program that she wanted. When she started upping to twice a month, people actually read her messages more. They were more interested. They responded back, and we did that through several tracking ways. And ultimately, her registrations went up. But when she went to 3 messages a week, then she didn't see any change, or 3 messages a month, excuse me, she didn't see any change. So it is a little bit about testing and tracking to see what's going to work. And I know, of course, in a webinar, I'm trying to share as much information as I can at one period of time, and I sometimes overdo it. I know some of your organizations are literally one person, so it's not to say you have to do all the things I mentioned. It's more about if I'm sending out a communication, do I have any idea whether it's getting in the hands of the recipient? If I spend 20 hours or 30 hours putting together my newsletter, which I know some of you are, I want to make sure that people are actually reading it. If people aren't reading it, that you shouldn't be sending it. Then you should be, then I would say it's better to spend time putting more information on your website and creating links through your social media or your e-newsletters. It's looking to say, how can I cut down on stuff that people aren't looking at versus adding more time to your plate.
Okay, that is the questions so far today, and we're going to wrap it up here. We do ask you again to spend time on the survey, and there is a question option on the survey, an open-ended thing. So if you have some other questions while you're doing the survey, please include that, and we will get those to Stephen. On behalf of U.S. Paralympics and Blaze Sports, I would greatly want to thank Stephen Stokes for being with us today and having a great webinar. And we hope that you enjoyed it, and we look forward to reading your surveys and responding to any questions that you have. So that wraps it up for today. And again, on behalf of U.S. Paralympics and Blaze Sports America, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.